Jalabert is 6th, and the King of the Mountains leader, Richard Virenque, is 13th. Marco Pantani came up to 11th, and the most sensational fall from grace, that came from Evgeny Berzin. He's now 21st and 17 minutes and 47 seconds back. Our two British riders, well, they soldier on as well. Max Chiandri is 55th and Sean Yates 109th. Well, the riders on this climb now, the Col de la Madeleine, and it takes them up to 6,562 feet or 2,000 meters, and there hasn't been attack anywhere on the climb at all today. Eric van der Aarden, though, has abandoned, and there are a couple of riders in difficulty, but basically all together. And this is now a gift here for the polka dot jersey of Richard Virenque. He's now waiting to attack. He's moved right up to the front on the wheel of his teammate there, Laurent Jalabert. Indurain is about 8 or 9 men back, but doesn't seem too interested in the big points for the King of the Mountains competition today. So as the sprint begins, it is Jalabert who leads out Richard Virenque, and it's a clear, easy victory for Virenque too. No challenge at all. Out of the way has gone Jalabert. Virenque takes the sprint, and the rider coming over from the Kelme team is the man who was away early on yesterday, Munoz. So the field all together now as they plunge down, heading for the valley. Next stop, the Col de la Croix de Fer. And as we expected, the slopes of the Col de la Croix de Fer has split the field to pieces. The attacks were started down in the valley by Laurent Jalabert, and one by one riders reached him and built up a leading group of some 15. In that leading group, Ivan Gotti, the former leader of the Tour on the HUEZ team, and the green jersey of Laurent Jalabert, both those riders lying 6th and 5th respectively overall. Then Alvaro Mejia joined him. This is the breakaway. Johan Brunel came here, but Miguel Indurain has reacted at the back when his lead dropped to, or rather the deficit came 1 minute 50 seconds down. Then he started to counter with his team. As a result, he is now in a group of 15 riders chasing, and Tony Rominger has been dropped by the Indurain group.
Well, it appears that Rominger just cannot survive the Tour de France the last couple of years. It really has put a lot of pressure on him, I think, being the #1 favourite coming into this event. And it may well be that psychological pressure that he just can't take.
And the list of abandons today has grown steadily. Now there are 10 riders out of the race today, starting with Mario Cipollini, who didn't start this morning. Already gone now, Eric van der Aarden. Maurizio Fondriest abandoned at the feed, at the same place, in fact, as Evgeny Berzin. Berzin apparently was ill all day yesterday, and he got as far as the feeding station today and climbed into his team car. Mark Wouters has gone, Mario Chiesa has gone, Jackie Durand, the first leader of this Tour de France, has also given up today. And there's another rider gone out now. Bertolini has abandoned the Tour, and so the list continues to grow.
I have a feeling there, Phil, I caught a glimpse of Tony Rominger actually just getting back into this group with Miguel Indurain. It looked very much like his style at the back of the pack there, just grappling back on it. It'd be interesting if we could go back there and check, because if he has done that, he's made a great recovery.
Either that or Indurain has slowed down the chase a little bit, but Pantani is sitting just off to the left of our picture, tucked in nicely, no doubt waiting for the final climb up to Alpe d'Huez to see if he's got the form to take him clear. Wietziberg is in this group now. He was earlier in the front group. And there, you're right, Paul, because there is Tony Rominger on the back of the group now, so he's recovered from that one. He's going to have to hang on as they go over the top. They're about 1.5 kilometers from the top of the Croix de Fer, and the crowd now beginning to thicken up here. Not many spectators on the actual climb, because you can't take your cars lower down. The road is simply too narrow to accommodate them.
But people set off very early in the morning to come up here and watch these races, and it takes them an awful long time to get there.
Dufaux setting the pace for Festina and hoping that Richard Virenque will finish it off with more points on this hors category climb, the second of 3 today in the Tour de France. Udo Bolt seems to have found his legs today. He lost time yesterday, but the champion of Germany, who rode so well in the mountains last year, has come good today. It is amazing how the form turns around in just 24 hours when you're in the mountains.
Some riders are just made for the Tour de France, and some riders you only see when they come to the month of July, because they spend the whole of their season preparing just for this one race, and that is a very difficult thing to do, and it's also a very dangerous thing to do, because you can lose a whole season if you come to the Tour and you don't perform.
This is the sprint for the summit now, and Richard Virenque is going for it again, so he's going to make it 2 out of 2, or is he? Little Munoz is going to have a go at him, but I think Virenque has plenty in hand. Munoz is second, and third over the top is Escartine, I think it was. So the 3 riders go through, but the group basically stays together. Indurain just monitoring affairs. He knows that he's going to wait, I think, for the climb of Alpe d'Huez and then give us one of his spectacular chase downs. But as they come up towards the summit, the leaders are over the top. Wietseberg leading through the yellow jersey group. 1 minute and 30 seconds back, Miguel Indurain and the field. So he's got a little bit of work to do on the way down if he wants to be with the leaders when they start the climb of Alpe d'Huez. And we'll be there as well. See you in a few minutes.
In 1952, this place looked like just another out-of-season alpine resort. And this man could have been posing for a catalogue. Don't be fooled, the story of the first stage to Alpe d'Huez coming up. In 1952, the most famous Alp on the Tour de France route was christened by an Italian. Fausto Coppi, in his work clothes, rode away from the field to take his first stage win that year en route to victory in Paris. A big win seen on the small screen. 52 was also the first televised tour. Now, for some reason, the Alp didn't reappear on the race route for another 24 years. But once it did, it quickly became the most famous climb in cycling. And not just for the pros either. Every year, hundreds of amateur racers go up the climb, sweating and straining ahead of the riders before the roads are closed, just so that they can say they've done it too. And now, they can also prove it, courtesy of one of these, which is a diploma of authentication from the tourism office here. As of this morning, 6,691 riders had received one, including, I should say, Mrs. Pat Liggett, who rode up here in fine style last year. Top honours, though, go to the oldest recipient, a 72-year-old American woman. Though what age she was when she set off, I'm not quite sure. All right, back to the race now. It's on the Alp. Here's Phil.
Well, thanks, Gary. Well, you know, I also tried to ride Alpe d'Huez and I gave up 2 miles from the top, so I got no certificate. But this man, I don't think anybody will ever climb it as quick as him. This is Marco Pantani, now on the lower slopes of Alpe d'Huez. He's still in pursuit of the breakaway, which has been clear since the top of the Col de Portet. And that breakaway is reducing in number. Mechir has been dropped for Motorola, so too Udo Bolt at Telecom, the German champion. And the gap is closing. Indurain's group we're looking at down here, we think is just over a minute behind the leaders, but Pantani has left the Indurain group and in about 2 kilometres has flown across to the leaders.
I think they're going to get an awful surprise when he comes up to this group, and you know what he will do? He'll try and go straight by them immediately and continue in his lone effort.
Magnificent piece of climbing by a pure climber. We talk of Lucien Van Impe and Federico Baramontes, the 2 riders who, 6 times each, won the King of the Mountains competition. They were real climbers too. But the others are strong men like Richard Virenque, but Pantani makes it look so easy. This is Ivan Gotti at the front now, the former leader of the Tour de France this year. Blown now is Johan Brunel and gone backward. Pantani, relentless in his pursuit, is cutting his way through to the front.
And the riders you can see there just in front are the leaders of the Tour de France at the moment. This is Ivan Gotti. Ivan Gotti is being followed by Jalabert, and it looks very much to me as if Richard Virenque has cracked the man who is supposed to be the climber. Jalabert is a non-climber, and he's being able to drop Virenque on a climb. Now this is quite stupendous.
And Escartine is thinking of attacking, but they better look over the shoulders because it's not the yellow jersey of Indurain this time, but this is the most talented climber in the world, and he's onto the back of them as Gotti goes off the front.
Oh, what an incredible ascension. It's so fantastic to see the climbers fighting it out on the slopes of Alpe d'Huez, because in the past it's been strong men, but it's a wonderful thing to see, something that, as you said earlier, we haven't seen for so many years. I don't think since the Colombians came to the Tour de France.
Pantani is steadily climbing into this picture, but he started the mountains yesterday 11 minutes behind Miguel Indurain, so he's not seen yet as a serious contender for that yellow jersey.
Who seems to have slowed off a little bit at the moment, because Gotti is going very much clear at the front there. He's tracked him again. In fact, he got caught a little bit, but now the move that Pantani has to make is to go straight away from this group, because otherwise he's going to drag them up with him to Ivan Gotti, who's in the lead at the moment.
It was almost a desperate dive there for the wheel of Pantani. Virenque is the man who's hooked up first. Escartine trying now to lift the revs just a little bit to hold on. Jalabert continues to follow and follow well. But you see the difference in the pedalling rate of Pantani and the others. Climbers pedal low gears and pedal quickly. The others tend to labour a little bit and just try to hang on by pedaling higher gears.
And all the time, Gerard Rouet at the front, helping Miguel Indurain, pacing him up the climb, just making sure that he limits his losses. He doesn't want to over-tire Indurain, he just wants to take him up the mountain nice and slowly.
And now Marco Pantani is going to have the road to Alpe d'Huez to himself. But I have a feeling that Gotti will not be quite so easy to shake off as the others.
As soon as the incline increases, that's when Marco Pantani will make his move and increase the gas a little bit, just to try and get rid of Gotti, because he knows the best way to win here would be alone, and it is such a risk if he was to drag Ivan Gotti all the way up here to the finish line, because then it would go down to a sprint, and that is very dangerous after a long stage like this.
But it won't happen now, Paul, because it's all over. The elastic has snapped, and Gotti too is now being dispatched back to the rest of the Tour de France. This man is now going up the mountain in true glory on Alpe d'Huez, where climbers have their moment of pleasure, and this rider is so nice to watch. Escartine always looks tired with his rather ugly climbing style, and yet he seems to be able to get it out.
Well, this is the man who is regarded as a right-hand man for Tony Rominger, but today I think he's been given a free hand to ride his own race. He's lying in 10th place in the overall standings, and he will move a little bit higher up. May well be that he'll move above his teammate Tony Rominger, who's having all kinds of difficulties on the Alpe d'Huez.
And there's Bjarne Riis, the first time we managed to see him, around about 55 seconds behind, and with him is Laurent Jalabert. He is now ahead of the Indurain group, and he's trying to pick up Richard Virenque, Jalabert and Escartine. And in fact, he has done it. He's come flying up. He's now caught the three of them along with Jalabert.
Well, that's a superb move by Bjarne Riis. I think yesterday he suffered in the mountains a little bit like one or two other riders because of the fact he's rode that superb time trial. He had the rest day, which really messes up a lot of riders because it changes their body rhythm, it changes their biological clock. But Riis has got his mountain legs on him today, and he's trying to get up there. But up the road, 50 seconds at the moment is the lead of Marco Pantani, the lone Italian. Richard Virenque has cracked. He's not able to stay with the acceleration of Bjarne Riis there, and he will be soon picked up, I think, by the group of Miguel Indurain.
Which is hardly a group now, Paul. He's dropped so many men. Big Alex Zula's got his wheel. So the first and second in the Tour de France are going up in tandem now on Alpe d'Huez.
Well, Riis will be happy with this performance, and the team manager, Emmanuel Bombini. In fact, Berzin is in the car watching his teammates there. That is quite incredible. In fact, I'm not quite sure that is permitted under the rules.
Well, it isn't, because the rules are riders who abandon the Tour must retire from the Tour in a following vehicle, which is not their team car. But anyway, it gave us a chance to see the two men at least as close together in person, if not in friendship. 1 minute 10 now. Pantani riding away to a superb victory that befits the greatest mountain in the Tour de France, Alpe d'Huez. These riders are hanging on in there, though, and the man who's hurting them most now is Bjarne Riis. We've only just had the time check, and this man has continued to fly towards that group. So very shortly, Miguel Indurain will be in the second group on the road, and he won't be overly concerned about the whereabouts of Pantani.
That's why he's a master. He's learned to dose his efforts. He doesn't panic when a break goes away. He waited, like he did yesterday, until he came to the final climb, and then he turned on the engine and he pulled himself back into the race, as he has done so many times in the past. Now, Miguel Indurain has caught these riders up. What a fantastic ride this man is doing.
And Zula is alongside him. Marco Pantani, this beautiful man who attacked at the bottom of the climb and used such pure speed that's only given to the gifted climbers of this world. And now Indurain has gone to the front. There'll be a scrabble for the back of his wheel, I'm sure of that.
Definitely the one man who will stay there is Alex Zula, because he's in second place in the overall, and he will leave it all up to Miguel Indurain now.
So Indurain, the man in yellow, the champion, is going to have to set the pace. A massive crowd on the slopes of Alpe d'Huez, as many as we've ever seen here today. and it's one of the nicest days too.
About 1 more kilometre for Marco Pantani. He'll arrive in the easier part of the climb of Alpe d'Huez. As Stephen Roach said to you, it's once you get to the top here, once you start to get into the town, it does become a little easier. And if you're at the front riding the way Marco Pantani is, he will just get blown along by the applause of the spectators.
And we're on the approach to the town at the top of the mountain. And just look at the people here, and believe me, this is nothing to what awaits Pantani when he goes across the village to the finishing line. This is the section now which is barriered, because you may remember the Tour de France a few years back when the Colombian climber Fabio Casartelli was almost brought to a standstill because of the people and the motorbikes around him. But now it's Pantani making his way to the summit. Jalabert hanging on to the back wheel here of Ivan Gotti, who has had a great climb himself of Alpe d'Huez, will keep his high overall place, as indeed will Laurent Jalabert. 5th and 6th overall in the Tour this morning, these two.
Indurain has got the same face that he's had for the last couple of days. Exactly the same face he had on that stage going into Liège, where he put 50 seconds between himself and his rivals, and that really could well have been the writing on the wall, because the next day he slammed them all in the time trial, apart from this man in the Danish national champions jersey, Bjarne Riis, who finished just 12 seconds behind Indurain. But he's so concentrated and so determined to get this 5th victory that I think, you know, he's going to walk away with it.
The first 3 riders in this year's Tour de France, proving just why they are the first 3 riders. Indurain, Zülle, Riis. In that order overall, in that order on our pictures now. Ivan Gotti is just behind them. He will climb up into 4th place overall tonight. He'll go at least ahead of Tony Rominger, and it just depends on the time losses of Rominger. Jalabert could be up to 5th, or at worst holding his place of 6th overall.
Zülle seems to be struggling a little bit at the moment, but you know, just to be able to stay in contact with Miguel Indurain is no mean achievement.
And now we're into the town itself, just to go across the square shortly, and then they run into the finish. They've been pedaling now for over 5 hours today for this trip of 100 miles, 164 kilometers, 162 and a half. And there is the kite in the sky now, 1 kilometer to the summit for Marco Pantani. And it must be a tremendous feeling for this man. He won a stage of the Tour of Switzerland just before the Tour de France started. That was the warning that he was refining his form. Now he's confirmed it today in Alpe d'Huez on what is one of the most beautiful days. There is Laurent Jalabert. He's on the wheel of Ivan Gotti, and he'll be 5th and 6th on the road, these two.
It's a superb performance by a man who's renowned for being a sprinter to get up to the top of the Alpe d'Huez in that. But here is the man who's leading the race at the moment, Marco Pantani. He gets just a little time to recover, because this is the flatter part of the course here. He's got 300 or 400 meters before he takes the left-hand turn into the avenue, which has been so magnificent over the last few years, with some great victories on the slopes of the Alpe d'Huez.
Gotti and Jalabert hanging back from the group. But here is Marco Pantani now crossing the centre of Alpe d'Huez, and the crowd kept back by barriers this year, so it's a very orderly approach indeed. But look at the strength in this man's legs now. He's being pulled on by inspiration, by the fact he's going to win the most famous day in any Tour de France and be first up to the top of Alpe d'Huez. We've seen so many great names come up here since Fausto Coppi first won back in 1952, but he's overshot the corner. That's the way the cars go, Marco. He's got the time. He's not so much worried about that now. And good job his brakes worked as well. But he's now lined up for the finish, and now he can sprint home. The Italians gasped when they saw that. Now they can welcome him as only Italians can. The flags are waving up here by the finishing line, and Marco Pantani, the finest climber currently racing the circuit in the world of professional cycling, has now proved it to everybody. This man is a beautiful climber, and he's proved it on the best mountain of the Tour. Marco Pantani salutes the crowd. There's the Italian flag on the right, and he's gaining time, although that won't be important to him, and that is why Miguel Indurain isn't too worried at the moment. And Miguel Indurain now is being obliged to lead out the sprint, so Alex Zülle and Bjarne Riis are going to take him in the sprint, I would think. But Indurain, when he doesn't like the people around him, can be very, very determined indeed, and annoyed if they try to jump him. So just let's see what sort of a sprint he can pull out. He knows the way up to Alpe d'Huez. He's done it many times before. He took it tight, so he would force them to attack them on one side of the road. Zula is warming up for a fine finish here after winning yesterday, but I'm not sure that even Alex Zula can come on to Miguel Indurain now. It is an uphill finish here, ever so slight, but it's hard after this climb. Indurain, you see, determined to the end. He's going to make it second. Looks over for the rest. Zula is third. There'll be a separate time for Bjarne Riis. The win, though, for Marco Pantani, and we believe he climbed Alpe d'Huez today at a record speed. We'll confirm that for you tomorrow. He came in 1 minute and 24 seconds ahead of Miguel Indurain and Alex Zula. Bjarne Riis was 4th, Laurent Jalabert was 5th, Laurent Jalabert finished 7th. Richard Virenque came home in 8th, and Ivan Gotti, he was 9th. Tony Rominger, though, he finished a disappointing 12th, losing today 3 minutes and 8 seconds. The two British riders, Sean Yates and Max Chiandri, they finished a long way down but safely inside of the time limit. They stay in the Tour. The slight figure tonight of Marco Pantani, the conqueror of the Alps, on the winner's podium. Well, Miguel Indurain can reflect now on 2 great days in the Alps. He leads Zula by 2 minutes and 27 seconds. Bjarne Riis is third at 6 minutes exactly. The unluckiest man was without doubt Ivan Gotti. He fell on the final corner, otherwise he would be in 4th place tonight. As it is, he stays 5th, a second behind Tony Rominger. Further down, Pantani is up to 7th place, while Virenque climbs 1 place to 12th.